again. This is Tom Simmons with another installment of Economics with Tully. And today we're going to be looking at the concept of utility. And over the years in economics, utility is a concept that has gone in and out of fashion. There are some decades when utility is all the rage, and some decades when it's not really considered very highly. I personally am a strong believer in the concept of utility. And this notion of utility is a way to explain consumer behavior that is different from, and in other ways complementary to, the traditional concepts of supply and demand that you've probably seen in my earlier videos. In my earlier videos, and when we look at supply and demand, or the concept of demand, we're considering the idea that consumers make their purchases based on price. And when price increases, the quantity purchased decreases, and vice versa. The concept of utility says, however, that human beings are more complicated than that. It's not just price. And that the amount of a good they're willing to purchase often changes even when price does not change. And it changes based on their ultimate satisfaction with the good, with how much of that good they've already consumed and already have, and with how much money they have left, how much additional income they have to spend. So it takes the concept of demand and price and adds to it the idea of, well, how much money do I have and how much satisfaction am I going to get from getting more of this? Very quick example. If you need a tank of gas and you pull into a gas station and the gas is $3 a gallon, you fill your gas tank. But when you go down the road 2 blocks later and find another gas station with gasoline that's for sale at 10 cents less, that doesn't mean you are now going to buy more from that station, because you don't need any more. You don't get any additional satisfaction by pulling into that gas station. Your tank is full. So, in order to make this video, we are here in the French Quarter of New Orleans, and I am up on the balcony of one of my favorite haunts in New Orleans, and that's Cafe Lafitte in Exile on the corner of Dumaine and Bourbon Street. And they've graciously allowed me to make this video here. And the reason I chose this location is because the concept of utility can most readily be seen, especially with tourists. And of course, New Orleans, and the French Quarter in particular, is one of the hottest tourist destinations in the United States. Several business magazines have rated it #1 or #2 in any number of 30 different categories in terms of live music, nightlife, B&B, personal service, friendliness, and things like that. And so you end up with hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of visitors every year coming down here to New Orleans. And yes, I am one of them, and I'm here every year. So, in looking at the concept of utility, think of someone who's got a certain amount of funds they want to spend. And so people fly in from all around the country, from the Northeast, Florida, Texas, California, and they have in their mind there are certain experiences they really want to have while they're in New Orleans. They want to have a traditional hurricane, which is the drink of the city. They want to eat jambalaya or crawfish étouffée. They want to come to Cafe Lafitte in Exile, where I am, for a holy water, which is their signature drink. And they come and they spend that money. And maybe the second night that they're here, they spend that money again. And the third night they're here, they spend that money on the same thing again. By the fourth night, the prices haven't changed, but they start switching to something else. Instead of the crawfish étouffée, maybe they're going to go for red beans and rice. Instead of for the bars or the jazz clubs they've gone to for the same night for 2 or 3 nights in a row, they want to try something new. And it's not because the price has changed at all. The prices haven't changed. It's because they've maximized their satisfaction with that particular good. Now, I can tell you, I've been here for a week so far on this little trip, and the first 2 or 3 mornings for breakfast, it was Jazz Legends Park. It's an outdoor park. They specialize in beignets. Cafe Beignet is the place that sells these New Orleans delicacies, and they have this open-air jazz band, and I was there every morning. By about the fourth morning, well, the prices didn't change, but I switched my consumption habits. We decided to try out a new place, an inside place. It didn't have music, but it came highly recommended. Same thing happened to me with dinner. I love oysters. First night here, I needed a dozen oysters. Second night here, I had a different kind of oyster. Third day here, I had more oysters. By the fourth day here, I actually went through an entire day and I bought no oysters whatsoever. Not because the price had changed, but because my satisfaction with eating oysters had maximized, and it was time to change to something else. And I've watched this behavior in myself throughout the entire time that I've been on vacation here in New Orleans. And all the other vacationers, all the other tourists are doing the same thing that I did. And so there's two different concepts that are important that economists have named that are reflected in the behaviors I've just described. The first is the idea of diminishing marginal utility. And fancy phrase, but if you take each word separately, diminishing, getting less and less, marginal, the next unit, utility, happiness, satisfaction. So diminishing marginal utility simply means that I'm getting less and less satisfaction with each additional unit of the same darn thing. That's the first concept. And it doesn't matter if the price is increased or decreased. The second is called the equimarginal principle. And the equimarginal principle states that people will spend their money across a broad variety of goods, a wide band of categories of goods, in such a way as to maximize their total satisfaction, and particularly to maximize their satisfaction in the last good purchased. So if I may love oysters, but if I've had them 3 days in a row, and I go someplace and they have something new and unique, alligator, for instance, which, yes, I did have on this trip, even if the oysters are at a lower price than the last 3 places, there's a really good chance I'm not gonna buy those oysters. I'm gonna try the alligator because I've maximized my satisfaction with oysters. And so I keep moving across category to category in order to continue to maximize my personal satisfaction. And you can see how this is very different from the traditional economist's notion of the law of demand that says everything is price driven. Well, for me, not everything is price driven, because even if you lowered the price of some of the things I've done 3, 4, 5 days in a row, maybe by that last day I want to do something different to get a new experience to maximize my satisfaction having this new experience. Now, this also suggests that people have different levels of satisfaction with different products. Some people come down to New Orleans and they go crazy over the New Orleans hurricane drink. I'm not a big fan of the hurricane. They'd be willing to pay a higher price than I would for that same drink. But of course the problem is, if you're selling something, whether it's a loaf of bread in a store or a hurricane out of a bar, you can't charge different prices to different people. You can't say, you really want this, don't you? So I'm going to charge you 12 bucks. And then say to someone else, well, I can tell you really don't like it, so I'll sell it to you for 2. They've got to have a set price. And that means by setting a set price somewhere in the middle of those two extremes, there are some people who will be thinking that they're getting a great deal because they'd be willing to pay $12 for something, but they only have to pay 8. That difference between what a consumer actually pays and what they would be willing to pay for that good is called consumer surplus. And one of the strategies for many businesses is to try and capture consumer surplus. And there's three very common ways that a business will use to capture that consumer surplus. The difference between the set price and what they'd really be willing to pay for it. And the first, which you see not only on Bourbon Street in New Orleans, but in every major city in America, is the notorious cover charge to get into a nightclub or into a drinking establishment. They know they can't charge you $10 a drink. So what they do is they advertise $6 drinks, or $8 drinks, or $4 drinks. But there's a $20 or a $15 cover charge to get in. Bottom line is, you're actually paying $10 or $12 per drink, but it doesn't seem that way because you've paid the cover charge. And if you apply that cover charge across all the drinks that you've purchased, you actually have paid that much per drink. So one way is that additional fee, whether it's a cover charge, a membership fee at a gym, or any other type of a club card at Costco where you pay a certain number of dollars per year for cheaper prices in the store. You're actually paying a higher price. The business is capturing the consumer surplus. A second method they will use is something called price discrimination. Now, quick note here. In legal terms, price discrimination is wrong. You can't charge me $10 and charge the person next to me $5. But what you can do is charge $10 for the evening movie and $3 for the afternoon matinee of the exact same movie. And you're basically marketing yourself to different populations, because there are different populations that see a movie at 3 as opposed to 11 o'clock at night. But you're not doing it in a way that intentionally discriminates on a person's demographic characteristics. You're basically saying the 3 in the afternoon experience is different than the 11 p.m. experience. So we're going to charge differently for those two experiences. The last way that a business may attempt to capture that consumer surplus is the one price ticket for entrance. Six Flags New England does this all the time. They know you would not pay $12 a ride for a particular ride. And if you did, after the second or third ride, you wouldn't be willing to pay that amount of money just for a ride. Why? Because of diminishing marginal utility, less satisfaction for each ride that you take. However, by charging you the upfront price, they've gotten that amount of money already. And so you think, oh, $65 to get in and unlimited rides is a great price. In effect, you've just paid $12 per ride for the rides you're going to take that day, but you didn't realize that that's what you were paying on a per ride basis. So as you can see, price, of course, plays a role. It always does play a role in what consumers are willing to spend their money on, what they're willing to purchase. But it's more complicated than that. And utility theory is designed to say, hey, it's a little more nuanced. Just because you've lowered the price of a good does not mean people are going to buy more of it, because they may have more than enough of it. And for any of you who have ever bought an air conditioner for your house, or something that's a one-time purchase like a washer or a dryer or a washing machine, refrigerator, car, set of tires, you're not going to run out and buy a new one just because you saw a sale on that particular good. So utility is a way to nuance our understanding of the law of demand. It depends on people's satisfaction, how much they've had enough of, how much they really want a particular good versus how much they'd really prefer another good now. And it explains why we kind of bounce back and forth from one store or one club or one music hall or one souvenir shop to another as we walk up and down Bourbon Street, because we want the variety of experience and we want to maximize our satisfaction by spreading our available income among a variety of goods to maximize that total satisfaction. So this is Tom Simmons with a very quick overview of the concept of utility, and I hope this has been helpful to you. in your effort to understand consumer behavior. Thank you, and laissez les bons temps rouler.